In a small village in Vacuo, a tribe held a belief in the ill luck of twins. At least, they did at one point. Nowadays, it's just a myth, an old wives' tale told at night around a fire. Though maybe that was only because a set of twins had not been born within the tribe in many, many generations. It was thought that twins were the same soul, split between good and evil. A pair would be raised long enough to figure out which was which, and then the one that was deemed evil would be snuffed out. It was a terrible, backwards belief, too cruel even in the harsh lands of Vacuo. And now that the tribe had a pair of twin girls born to them, they believed themselves better than those old myths. At least, most of them did. Lapis and Lazuli Bakshi were named by the village elder, but their parents were Beryl and Gem, ardent believers of the oldest traditions. They were quite distraught at the thought of raising twins, but didn't want to rock against the majority of the tribe's wishes. Though they eventually settled on that this would be a good thing. When the evil twin came into her own, everyone would see that the old ways are correct. As time went on and the girls grew, they were raised mostly communally, but most closely by their parents. Lapis, the technical oldest, was a shy girl, a bit clumsy but well-meaning and kind. Lazuli was mostly the opposite, outgoing and very capable for one so young, though just as kind as her sister. The two were rarely seen apart, and were the jewels of the tribe, but their parents began to see the different qualities of their daughters, and began to act more coldly to Lapis while praising Lazuli as time went on. They did so subtly, unnoticed. To all the rest, they were a model family. Nothing Lapis did was ever good enough, and Lazuli could do no wrong. Beryl and Gem would speak of Lapis's poor behavior now and then, and how amazing Lazuli was. She would even be the tribe's leader when she was old enough, they would say. Time passes, and the perspective of the tribe is slowly lining up with theirs. Lapis's shyness is seen as antisocial behavior that only gets worse. Her clumsiness is seen as purposeful acts against others. Her kindness is seen as a way to get out of trouble. All the while, Lazuli excels, is loved by everyone, and is now the sole jewel of the tribe. And yet, after all of this time, the two were rarely seen apart. Lazuli was seen as the whole world by others, but her whole world was her sister. No matter what anyone said, she would never leave her side, and would hold her through every terrible, tear-filled night. But even a golden child could not sway the thoughts of adults. Her protests and defense of her sister fell on deaf ears, and so she interacted with others less and less. Though, of course, this was only seen as Lapis corrupting poor Lazuli. As young teenagers, the two would come into their semblances, though Lazuli's unlocked first. It was called Bloom, and it allowed her aura to cultivate plant life and control it to a certain extent, even in the arid lands of Vacuo. Truly a blessing to the tribe, though it made everyone fret over what Lapis's would be. Surely it would be the opposite, and how terrible it was that they were right. It was discovered on Beryl's birthday. Lapis wanted to do something nice, so she took her father's old weapon from the wall and began to polish it while he was out. However, he ended up coming home earlier than expected and found her. He immediately began scolding her without letting her explain. The nervousness and the fear unlocked her semblance. Wither, and the weapon began rusting in her hand. Beryl struck the young girl across the face, claiming her to be evil and that he was right to think that all along. Those words sent Lapis's entire world crashing down along with her body as she hit the floor. She watched her father raise the now rusted weapon above his head as her sister and mother rushed into the room. Lazuli questioned what was going on, and Beryl said that he was purging the tribe of evil. Jem told Lazuli that it was for the best, calling Lapis a thing that was corrupting her and everyone else. Evil must be purged. After the thought settled in her mind, Lazuli agreed. Evil indeed must be purged. And that was the last thing Lapis heard as she fell unconscious. When she came to, Lapis's head was laying in Lazuli's lap. They were no longer in the village. She didn't know where they were. She asked what had happened. Lazuli had saved her from their parents and ran away as fast as she could. She was never going to let anyone hurt her beloved sister. Lapis sat up and looked on in the distance, seeing the home that they could never return to. From that day, they changed their surname to Berry, and the two would make do however they could, finding it hard to trust anyone other than themselves. They were strong as individuals, but their true strength was fighting together. Even in the rough and arduous deserts of Vacuo, there was nothing they couldn't accomplish so long as one had the other. Still, with so many terrible memories, they wished to see new horizons and left for Vale, eventually joining Beacon Academy and becoming part of Team Yellow, meeting Ylva and Orchid. Over time, their walls would come down, and they would accept the two as their new family. Even in these happier days, however, Lapis still thinks back on the day they left when she looked out in the distance. She never asked Lazuli about the giant tree that had sprouted up in the middle of the desert, or why she was covered in blood. And with that, I decided to finish up my RWBY team. Literally one person asked for this, so shout out to All Around Fan 1, though I did always intend to wrap this up, complete the set and all that. There is still a bit more to talk about, so hang around, hit that like button, and also let me know what you thought about the little story down in the comments below. Also, of course, a big thank you as always to YellowNicky for providing art. Once again, the twins came out as amazing as Ylva and Orchid did. Now, to finish up some more details on Lapis and Lazuli. Fitting in with the loose RPG theme that I gave the team, Lapis fits into the role of rogue/thief, and Lazuli is the cleric, giving us the well-balanced standard setup of tank, melee DPS, magic DPS, and support. But of course, given that this is RWBY, these two also have more inspirations than that, though admittedly it's more loosey-goosey compared to the other two. In general, they are based off of the concept of yin and yang, to speak very broadly. This is largely showcased in their color scheming, just with blue rather than black. But to get into specific figures for inspiration, and I apologize for the horrific pronunciations I'm about to do, I went with Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. They are major primary figures in, bear with me for a second, Zoroastrianism, I apologize, but primarily the branch of Zorvanism, for making them twins. Though this is admittedly just a baseline inspiration for the dichotomy of good and evil that I wanted to go with. Still, I did make sure to give the twins plenty of Middle Eastern Persian design elements to help tie into the ancient religion. And to wrap things up, I have a list of information about the two that I'll go over to get them more fleshed out for you, including a little interaction with Ylva and Orchid. Lapis is a brooding type of girl, very slow to get close to others. As an adult, she's far more confrontational than when she was younger, standing up for those she cares for like her sister has done for her, even when they are small slights. Past her walls, she is still of very few words, but is extremely caring. She shows affections in small gestures and actions, like making tea for you just how you like it without being asked. She's also very dry-humored once you've gotten to know her. Lazuli, while more personable, is just as guarded as her sister, who she has a slight obsession over. Even as a social butterfly, she is very keen to keep people at an arm's length until she can trust them, though, that said, she can be much harder to win over than Lapis. Most will only ever see her as a kind, sweet young woman, but those who cross her and hurt those she loves, they will learn the true meaning of cruelty. And this kind of protection currently extends to Ylva and Orchid. Circling back to the obsession thing, both sisters share a codependency issue due to their past, and it manifests in personal ways. Lapis feels weak and worthless without Lazuli by her side, while Lazuli grows increasingly paranoid when separated from Lapis. Now for a bit of love talk, Lazuli is aware that Orchid loves Ylva, and that Ylva is completely oblivious. She is constantly trying to play matchmaker between the two. Meanwhile, Lapis has feelings for both Ylva and Orchid, but she isn't really sure what to make of that, as her only meaningful relationship during her entire life has been her sibling bond with Lazuli. Ultimately, Lapis feels that she is conflating the three of them being able to relate with romantic feelings, seeing as Ylva was shunned by her hometown after the Beowulf incident, and Orchid has a history of being treated as lesser, both things that happened to her. And finally, on a lighter note, their weapons combine to create a dust-powered railgun. Hope you enjoyed all the RWBY characters I have created. Be on the lookout for more OCs from other series in the future, and support actual artists. I'll catch you next time in the void. Later.